Good evening, everyone. We're going to call tonight's meeting to order, and we'll begin with an approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that's carried. Was there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Not seeing any. There is a recommendation that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act for the purposes of considering the following subject matters. We have closed council minutes from May 25th, a confidential memorandum regarding conduct inquiry, personal matters about an identifiable individual. We have the 2024 labor relations for the Fire Services Collective Agreement and the ratification. That is under labor relations or employee negotiations. And we have a verbal update from the CAO regarding Theatre Orangeville under 239 subsection 2I, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. We are now in closed session. Thank you. We'll see you guys in a bit. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be saved for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of the meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press star 9 to raise their hand and to indicate their intention to speak, and to dial star 6 to mute or unmute when called upon during the appropriate portions of the meeting. Ahead of our open portion, we did have a closed session, and we do have a rise and report that's coming out of that. The rise and report is that the 2026 May 25th closed council minutes be approved, and that the confidential memorandum regarding conduct inquiry be received, and that any scheduled Access Orangeville committee meetings after June 11th meeting be cancelled for the remainder of the term until a new committee is appointed in the new term, and that the confidential report CMS 2026-18 be received, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a collective agreement with the Orangeville Professional Firefighters Association, Local 4328, and that the verbal report from the CAO be received and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? And that is carried. We do have some minutes from the May 25th council meeting that need to be received and approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried. We'll now move into open forum, where Orangeville residents will have the opportunity to present their views or pose their questions to council on any subject within council's jurisdiction for a maximum time of 3 minutes, provided they have not previously addressed the same topic before council within the last 3 months. If there's anyone connecting via telephone, you're reminded to press star 9 to indicate your intention to speak. Madam Clerk, was there anybody online that is intending to speak? Okay, for the delegate that's online, we'll start with you. If you can just press star 6 to unmute, and I will turn it to you. That's to the person joining online. It's star 6 to unmute, and we'll need your name and address for the record. Okay, so we'll go into the gallery then if there's nobody online that wishes to speak. Anybody from the gallery who wishes to speak? Mr. Simpson, come on up. Yep. We'll get it turned on for you and just make sure the mic is up close. And then you'll have your 3 minutes, and we need your name and address first.
Good day, my name is Chuck Simpson. I live at 309 Broadway, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W11L4. Good evening, Mayor Post and members of the Orangeville Town Council. As I introduce myself, my name is Chuck Simpson. I wish to bring up some concerns I have about the use of e-scooters here in Orangeville. I see more and more of these vehicles out and about, and I call them vehicles as I consider anything with a motor and engine a vehicle. My concerns start as follows. Perceived general lack of knowledge of the rules of the roads, no signals, no lights, no stopping, walking your scooter across intersection is an example, riding on sidewalks and then moving to the road, then moving through intersections against lights and so forth, riding on sidewalks side by side, no safety equipment, i.e. helmets, proper clothing. If you get hit by an object in the head, even if you're doing 25 kilometers, the so-called maximum speed allowed, you're going to get hurt and the possible lost control of your scooter. If you fall off your scooter and you're only wearing shorts or have no gloves, again, you're going to get hurt. Riding at night without reflectors or lights makes for a very dangerous ride. Hard to see. Liability. What if you hit someone with your scooter? What insurance is there? If you're under 16, does this fall under your parents or guardians? Riding double. Example, I seen a scooter coming down Broadway with an adult driving and having a child standing in front of him. I've seen youngsters riding double, proper respect for other drivers. Example, I pointed out to a couple of young boys after they ran a red light that this was not the way to ride. I got a new set of hand signals and a very colorful reply, which is shocking. Trying to look online for directions and guidance, but it just gets so confusing with everything. I did read the article that the Orangeville Citizen put out November 13, 2025, referenced the viability of e-scooters. It did quote Councillor Andrews, who raised some very interesting points. All I ask is that something must be done. Bylaws induced training, guidance somewhere within the government, local or provincial. As the weather gets warmer and the cost of getting around gets more and more expensive, these scooters are going to be an attractive means of getting around for all ages. Bikes and scooters seem to be moving to the sidewalk as a safer place to travel. But all that does is makes the ordinary people walking on the sidewalks put into more danger. They are called sidewalks for a reason. Rules have got to be in place and enforced. If nothing is in place and enforced, then the people will just ignore common sense, and that does not bode well for us. I appreciate you listening for my comments.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Mr. Jackson, come on up.
Thank you. Try and get a little closer. There we go. All right, James Jackson, 50 Carlton Drive in Orangeville. I've actually come to you tonight. I'm a little upset. I'm feeling disrespected, and even I can't even put to words some things that I'm feeling. And in regards into, I came to this council in the beginning of the term with a problem, and I gave you a solution, and you actually implemented it, and you had the temporary accessible parking at the sides here for events. My wife, who's used it quite a few times to come to the farmer's market, and now she can't because you've taken it away. And you took out the one that was in front here as well, and then you put in one accessible parking spot that is not even for regulation. You didn't even finish. You only did a half-assed job to it. And so it's, how can you enforce that type of parking spot? But most of all, like I said, it's, you turned around, you took out those parking spots, and then you made it about, and this is how it's come across. I'm not saying that this is actually how it happened, but it's coming across to the taxpayers of the town of Orangeville of pure entitlement, because you put down municipal vehicles only. Town folks or town staff, I'm sorry, but you're capable of walking. You could park over in the public parking and walk over to town hall instead of having entitled parking right here because it's closer for you. They're having that issue even up at the hospital where senior staff there wanting to be a closer parking. Anyways, but that's when I'm just feeling hugely disrespected that I came up with an idea for you guys and you did it, and now it's been taken away and you didn't do anything. So we've lost 3 accessible parking spots here at Town Hall, and it's now, and when we have the farmer's market takes over the accessible parking spots here at the side and in front on 2nd Street as well. So you've just now made it inaccessible, and there's no inclusion when you're excluding people from it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. My understanding is that those will still be temporary accessible parking spots during events, but I will turn it over to Mr. Koslak. I think we've changed it so that when it's not events, it is municipal fleet parking and not regular parking. But when there is an event, we will still put up a temporary sign, I believe. Mr. Koslak?
Yep, through your worship. One of the concerns, I guess, we had our audit done, or our evaluation from an accessibility point of view, and it was flagged the parking spot in front of the town hall isn't a true accessible spot, and the other spots aren't accessible. So that's one of the reasons we created the new parking spot that Mr. Jackson was referring to. It was just painted a couple days ago. One of the reasons they didn't put the side markers on it yet, they're waiting to see, I guess, the type of vehicles and try and finalize. Once you put the paint down, it's difficult to try and change anything. So they wanted to wait a couple weeks just to see the type of vehicles that are using it and how it's being done. But we'll continue to monitor it and continue to work with the area. The parking lot across from Broadway, I believe there was 3 additional spots that were added recently along the front closest to Broadway. So there is being work done in the area, and if there are comments or concerns, we can look at it. But part of the concern was they didn't meet the standards for the accessibility.
And the municipal fleet vehicles parking there, is that right, that it will still be temporary accessible parking when there is an event?
I believe so, and I'll confirm with staff. If not, we can implement that.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Prendergast?
Just out of interest, Mr. Koslak, what was preventing those spots from adhering to the AODA standards?
Through your worship, a lot of it was the size of them. It's just a narrow alleyway, so to make them truly accessible, you'd have to take up a considerable portion of the alleyway. And much like the one at the front of the town hall, it wouldn't be wide enough. So we'd have to take out a portion of the sidewalk or move the curb onto the road to gain a few feet to be able to have space. So it wouldn't really be practical to be able to try and modify it. That's why we changed the one parking spot as soon as you pull into the back of the town hall. That's done for an accessible parking spot right there. And there's an additional one on 2nd Avenue just past the parking lot. We're also looking at other areas where it would be an option to have one, such as across the road from the entrance near the TD Bank. One of those parking spots, we're looking at that option also.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was talking earlier to David Smith, and him and I were just wondering, in the future, if things are going to change, could we bring it back to the Accessibility Committee? As chair of that committee, it probably would have eased some tension or pain, and it would just be beneficial, I believe.
Mr. Koselleck?
Certainly, we can do that. I was under the understanding that it went to the Accessibility Committee for discussion, but I'll follow up with staff.
It did years ago when Mr. Jackson brought it up. It did not. We were unaware that it was going to change back here, and the one spot at the side from 2nd Street, it didn't come. So it would just help ease the communication.
Okay. Certainly, I'll follow up and make sure staff take anything forward that.
Thanks, Mr. Koselleck. I'm just going to check online again. There was somebody that still had their hand up. Just want to check if they are interested in speaking. It's *6 to unmute.
Hi there.
Hi.
Sorry about that earlier.
No problem. We just
Mark
need your
Middleton
we just
on-
need hi. We just need your
Sorry.
name and address for
Yeah.
the record, and then we can start.
Sure. Mark Middleton, Zinus Street. I guess I wanted to continue this, what seems to be a safety talk this evening, and find out if staff have put through motion for speed humps in town. We've got 12 schools, a couple of community centers, and wanted to find out if we're moving forward with traffic calming measures here now that the province has vetoed the speed cameras last November. And I know we were on the cusp of getting two, but wanted to find out if council are now moving forward with other measures in order to keep our schools safe. And it just ties into what everyone's been talking about earlier tonight, and definitely a concern of the community, safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton. I will say that council already has approved a traffic calming policy, but I know that staff is working on some areas right now. So I'll turn over to Mr. Koselleck to talk about how those traffic calming policy will be put into action.
Yep. Certainly, through your worship, there was a traffic calming policy that was adopted in early, I think it was 2022 or 2021. A lot of those we've implemented in different areas. You see in some of the school areas, we have figures of children. I notice people slow down quite quickly when those come out. We move them around and rotate just to make people aware there are kids in the area. We also have additional traffic calming by doing speed monitoring. So we have message feedback signs that we put up in a lot of the areas, including Alder Spencer, to be able to let people know how fast they're driving and give them that feedback to encourage them to slow down. We've also done traffic counts in other areas to see speed and volume using our black cats so people don't see them there. And we're working with our friends in the OPP. If we do notice an issue, we're able to provide the data to them, to provide information on where the occurrences are, the times of day, and have them to be able to do some education with us. We're also looking, I think we talked before, about a few of the pedestrian crossings, doing a pilot project to put vertical yellow posts up just to have people more alerted for them. So those would be a pilot project we'll be putting in later this year for 3 locations. The policy that was implemented doesn't have or allow any speed bumps. It's something we'll look at in the future for consideration in future budgets. And if it is something being done, I think when it went through a public process, there was concerns about people speeding before or after and then braking hard going through them. But we are continuing to look at some different options for it.
Thanks, Mr. Koselleck. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to address? Come ahead, Mr. Smith.
Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street. In regards to the e-scooter pilot, I'm just curious to know if there's any data regarding, say, if there's been incidents in town or collisions or injuries or bylaw complaints, just seeing if there's any data to go along with them. Thank you.
Not sure who wants to take that one. David, do you want to take that?
I think we defer that. I think that report's going to get pulled, and our supervisor of bylaw will be able to answer some of those questions. They are governed, I'll just say, by provincial legislation, not municipal legislation. I think that's an important distinction for people to understand.
Yeah, we are going to be pulling it through the consent agenda, so there will be some questions. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Yeah, come on up, Tammy. Oh.
Hello there. Good evening, everyone, members of the public, council members, staff, and everybody. My name is Nick Garisto. I live on 20 Paula Court, L9W5V1. Couple of questions here. It was raised now about speed bumps or speed humps. In my opinion, go with the speed humps, no bumps. This way, when the school is not in session, you can take those off. But if you put the speed bumps is off, they're going to be there forever. And I tell you, I drove in the city yesterday. What a nightmare when you go through those streets with those speed bumps. But humps in the school areas, it would be perfect. Well, the other question I have, I received a letter today that some work is going to be done at the water tower off Beeline there. So I understand, I live on Paula Court, and I'm going to be without water for a couple of days. What is going on there? Does anybody know?
Mr. Koslek?
Yep, through your worship, the water tower that's out on the west side of town was built almost 30 years ago. When they built the tower, they didn't put a shutoff valve in to isolate the tower. So one of the things we want to try and clean and rehabilitate the inside of the tower, but to allow that to be done, we have to drain the tower to be able to put the valve in. The way Paula Court was built, it's built from the water tower. So unfortunately, to put an isolation valve in at the tower, the water would have to be turned off at Paula Court to be able to allow that to be done. I guess some money was saved 30 years ago, but now we need to be able to do that work. So unfortunately, there's no way around it to not drain the tower to put the new valve in.
Also, the letter stated that, that we have to get water, fill up the bathtubs, fill up everything for a couple of days. Geez, that's insane that we have to do that and no water inside the home. I don't know. But they also, the letter states, go buy some water at the store. Hey, that's my money I'm using, and I'm paying for the water and I'm paying for the sewer.
It's a temporary issue to fix the infrastructure.
Yeah, but that's very unfair, though, that I have to pay for the water, where I already pay for it, and the sewer too.
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry, do you have something that you wanted to add? I see that you just lit up there, so over to you. We can't hear you. You need to unmute. There we go.
Sorry, I thought I did. Through you, Madam Mayor, the work that Mr. Garisto is referring to will take 2 days. However, the water shutoff should only be 4 to 5 hours long. We've scheduled the work, so we're doing all the excavation in 1 day, and then the actual valve will be inserted day 2. So we did plan for a very short duration of water shutoff.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. That's important clarification. So just a few hours of disruption to the water service.
That is correct.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question? Ms. Linebeer, do you have something? No? Okay.
Good evening, council and staff. My question is, are we still on a
Could you just do your name and address for the record, please, first?
Rick Ugolini, Cedar Drive, Orangeville. I was wondering, are we still on a water restriction? And if we are, What's with all the car washes and people watering their lawns every day in the middle of the day? That's my question.
Mr. Koselleck?
Yeah, through your worship, sorry, I'm a little bit louder now. We're having, I guess, water restrictions. There's no watering bans. Our policy for the watering, it's based on the last digit of your address, and those are the days you should be watering. Right now, we don't have a water ban or anything more, so car washes and things can operate. People should be following the day that they do it. If there's a complaint basis, bylaw will follow up on it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the gallery? Okay, let's carry on then. We will, oh, Karen, come on up. It's not like you not to speak up. I didn't hear you there.
It's 23 York Street. I don't have a question, at least not now. Mayor Post, members of council.
Can you just pull the mic down closer to you, just so everybody can hear? Thank you.
Mayor Post, members of council. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. Council got it. Our original request was to obtain HCD status for York Street. Residents in this area already know that the loop through Casey Gardens to parts of Bithia, John, and along York Street is a safe pedestrian area for parents and children, also for the elderly and mobility challenged. What we need is the connectivity. The town of Orangeville has a vision for the expansion of Broadway. There are also many housing developments on hold at the moment. Orangeville will see a population surge. What we don't have is enough green space. I was initially concerned when the trailways were not included in the HCD boundaries, but with their planned development and proximity to Casey Gardens, it could lead into the new, if it gets received tonight, HCD and the center of downtown. A real sense of connectivity is established. A young woman walked on York Street about 2 days ago and stopped and took some pictures and stated, "I walk this street every day." We also have new neighbors on Bithia Street who appreciate the area and are very happy to become part of a heritage district. Thanks to council, staff, and planning, special shout out to Councillor Sherwood and Heritage Orangeville and the Stantec team. The residents who have been so supportive for the creation of a heritage conservation district, all of you for creating a bit of what we need, depending on the outcome tonight. A sense of heritage, a safe place to walk, a bit of green. So this is a preemptive wish. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Anybody else in the gallery? Okay, so now we'll move on to presentations, petitions, and delegations. We do just have one today, which is Rob and Amy from Orangeville Hydro. So come on up. They're going to present our 2025 annual report.
Excellent. Ready to go. All right, Mayor Post, Council, thanks for having us again. So we've spoken a few times, and it was a large package for this one, so we won't be going through every page or every slide. We're out of respect for your time tonight. So I'm going to mainly hit on three areas. Our 2025 capital program, our dividends to the shareholders, and the importance of rate base, a term that really hasn't come to council before, but I did want to talk about that. So Orangeville Hydro continues to focus on the basics: safe operation, reliable service, responsible capital investment, cost control, regulatory compliance, and value to municipal shareholders. In 2025, we invested $2.9 million in capital projects across our system. That included our continued voltage conversion program, the blind line conductor upgrade, transformer refurbishments, poles, transformer replacements, meter replacements, and investments in our vehicles and facilities. So these are practical projects. They are the type of projects that help maintain reliability, address aging infrastructure, improve our capacity, and keep the system ready for growth. The blind line, actually, you can even go to maybe slide 5 if you like, just so they can mention a few things on there. Thank you. Wonderful. The blind line work is a good example of the type of projects we do. That project removed undersized legacy conductor, which improved the capacity of the circuit under redundancy and backup conditions. It's not the type of project that most customers would notice day to day, but it matters to the strength and flexibility of our system. The same is true for our voltage conversion, pole replacements, transformer work, meter replacements. They're all normal utility investments, but they need to be planned and paced carefully. With growth, we know growth is continuing, whether that's from new customers or existing customers. Electrification is becoming more visible. Capacity planning is becoming more important. So the question for us is not whether we invest in our system. We have to invest. The question is how we do it in a disciplined way that supports reliability and growth while still respecting our customers' bill. The second point, you go to the next slide, is our dividends. Orangeville Hydro's dividend policy is 50% on the prior year's audited net income. So based on the 2025 results, the 2026 dividend payments payable to the shareholders is just shy of $575,000. The dividend is one of the direct benefits of municipal ownership. The company continues to invest in our system, but also returns value to our municipalities that own us. Amy will speak a bit more about the financial results, but I do want to note that the 2025 net income exceeded our budget forecast. We also exceeded our regulated rate of return for the year. Our 2025 net income was $1.15 million, and our regulated return on equity was 10.98% compared to our deemed sort of the target of 9.21. So this is, that is a positive, but it also needs to be understood in context. We operate in a regulated environment. Our goal is not to maximize earnings only as some other private sector businesses, because we're not going to do that at the expense of our customers. Our goal is to operate responsibly, invest prudently, and earn an appropriate rate of return within our regulatory framework. This brings me to the next slide, which is rate base. So I know rate base is not something council spends a lot of time thinking about, but it is something we think about, and it is important from a shareholder perspective. So the simple way to describe what we're looking at here, just on the x-axis is since incorporation 2022 to today, and dollars on the left-hand side. And so when we make prudent capital investments, like the ones I mentioned in 2025, those are into the assets, whether new or rebuilt. They're the assets needed to serve our customers. Those assets become part of our financial statements and part of our regulated asset base. The Ontario Energy Board allows a utility to earn a return on this base. In general terms, the rate base is made up of the average of our fixed assets plus a working capital allowance. So our capital program is not just a cost, it is also part of how a utility like us maintain our service, support growth, and creates a long-term value to the shareholder. That does not mean that spending for the sake of spending ever occurs. It means investing carefully where the system needs it at a pace that makes sense. So the connection is fairly straightforward between our capital program and rate base. The capital program maintains and improves the system. Those investments help sustain and grow our rate base. The rate base supports a regulated rate of return for the shareholder. That return supports the dividend, which is the long-term value of the utility and helps reduce tax dollars for the taxpayers. So that's the disciplined approach we take to our capital investment and why it matters. It's not just about replacing equipment. It's about maintaining reliability, supporting our growth, and protecting the value of our utility. So for me, the main message from our 2025 annual report, other than what Amy will add to, is pretty straightforward. We had a solid year. We invested in our system, maintained our service, exceeded our forecast. We paid a dividend to the shareholder, and we continue to prepare for our future system needs. Over to Amy.
Thanks, Rob. If you could go to the next slide, please. So just looking at just a bit of information here. So Orangeville Hydro, we do submit an annual rate application to the Ontario Energy Board, where in 2025, the service charges and...
Amy, can you just pull the mic over just a little bit? Thank you.
Right there. Sorry. Thank you. And so the service charges and distribution volumetric charges increased by 3.6%. These rates that are charged to our customers support our operating expenses, as well as they provide a return to our shareholders. The overall rates on the delivery portion of the customer's bill for 2025 decreased for all customers, all classes of customers, as shown here on the slide, as compared to their 2024 rates, mainly due to reductions in recoveries of deferral accounts. Even with a small increase in number of customers year over year, Orangeville Hydro's distribution revenue increased by about $350,000 in 2025. And if you could skip 3 slides, please, to operating expenses, right there, thank you. So our operating expenses increased by just over $45,000 from 2024, with the major factors being internal labor cost increases, higher reactive work after storms, and increased tree trimming expenses to improve future reliability. Our overall net income was at its highest in 7 years and was higher than last year by $185,000, mainly due to increased distribution revenues and also miscellaneous revenues, which includes water and sewer billing and collecting services. Next slide, please. Our capital expenditures vary year over year due to many factors, with contractor costs and connections of subdivisions often creating the most variability as we look in historical years. 2025 was comparable to 2024, with our ongoing voltage conversion work being a significant component, as well as the replacement of meters and failed transformers. We also replaced the roof over the garage portion of our building. We purchased a new pickup truck in accordance with our vehicle replacement policy, and also acquired a backyard digger derrick. And next slide. We take debt mainly to fund our capital expenditures and finance our regulatory variances. We did increase our debt in 2025 by just about $1 million, and we are proud of historically having lower debt than the average of all Ontario utilities over the past many years. So I will pass it back to Rob just for some final comments.
I know I've said it a few times now, but the key takeaway from us that it was that 2025 was a strong year for Orangeville Hydro. And it was a year of continued disciplined capital investment to support reliability growth in our rate base, as well as long-term shareholder value. We're in a good position, but we're not taking that for granted. And I hope you saw that in our last presentation with our business plan on what's to come. So thank you for your time, and we're, of course, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Was there any questions from members of council? Councillor Andrews.
I was hoping maybe somebody else might have a question, but that's okay. Mr. Coco and Ms. Long, it's always a pleasure. And again, you're almost like a frequent flyer here over the last number of meetings, and it's great to get this update. And again, the information that you've provided is really clear. I'm looking at one of the pages in the report, and under peak demand, and not to put you on the spot, but this is something that we've spoken about before, and where the peak demand I noticed in 2025 has increased. I'm just going to kind of go off on a tangent for just a second about EVs, and you and I have spoken about this and the adoption of EVs, and with the announcement by the federal government to have 49,000 EVs come into the country, and I figure it's going to end up increasing over a very quick period of time. Having said that, are you preparing long-term for any capital investments that may be required to support additional demand and changes from a consumer point of view? Because as much as this may be charged during off-peak time, if you happen to have a level 2 charger at home, I'm still anticipating that if people start adapting, and with the cost of fuel where it is right now, who knows what's going to happen from a world perspective. Are you doing any long-term planning that was not highlighted in the report regarding the capital investment regarding this specific lane that I'm talking about?
So we've talked about EVs a few times over the years, as you should, and and it's something that we can't go a day now. It used to be a month, used to be a week, now it's a day without talking about electric vehicles. And I'll kind of do two things with other electrification items too. But with electric vehicles, regardless of what the incentives are or the push from different levels of government, we know they're coming. We will not be able to predict the pace, or that predicting macroeconomic changes and the pace of consumer adoption is not our forte, but we need to be prepared from it, similar to your water systems, right? Even though you may not know exactly when the homes are being built, exactly when things may change, you need to be prepared long-term. So for us, yes, we're working with our upstream suppliers, at least for what we need. So when you see 52 megawatts peaking on a hot summer day in 2025, we expect, well, there's the base. It's going to continue to climb from there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing it in certain areas of town and certain areas of service territory more than others. Certain feeders are going up while other feeders are going down. So we monitor it on a granular level. We have a large load finder from the smart meter data. We don't know what the loads are, but we know what some of the larger electrification items are coming, and we're monitoring the quantity of those over time. And so we are working closely with our upstream supplier and transmitter, Hydro One, ensuring they have the capacity that they need to feed us in the future. And put it together in simple terms, say take our 3 27.6 feeders, they have a certain threshold capacity that we're allowed to put on them. Knowing what that limiting asset is and understanding what it would take to replace that asset. If we can't increase the limiting factor, you bring in a fourth feeder, ensuring that the supplier can handle that. And so even though a lot of what's going on in the news is more from the provincial level, will be generation across the province. Is there enough generation? Federal will be more focused on coast-to-coast transmission lines.
Yes.
We are worried about, as we should, our infrastructure, regardless of what's available, on the grander scale. Really, we're looking at our basket of eggs and ensuring we have what we need for our customers. And it's a challenge because you don't want to overinvest and then the load not materialize and the existing customers have to pay for a share that they didn't need. So we're trying to always right size those what can be lumpy investments and work. And to be honest, our regulator holds our feet to the fire on that and make sure that we really make sure we don't overinvest before the load will materialize. So we're closely talking with the developers and when the homes will come, new businesses, trying to understand what also the non-EV loads that are coming our way, the electrification of building heat with heat pumps, and then sometimes there's the unknowns, some other electrification items of fossil fuel uses, hot water tank heaters, pool heaters can be fairly large loads that we didn't expect, but are starting to come on our system as well.
It's an excellent answer to the question, and I guess my comment is, it's really a combination of being reactive, but also forecasting, where you are, what is that sweet spot from an investment perspective, and I think that, we're right on where you should be, at least from my seat here, but I'm very appreciative of the answer, and again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast, and then Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. And thank you, Amy and Rob. Amy, you mentioned costs related to cleanup after storms. So it got me thinking, if Orangeville Hydro has data on storm cleanups versus what is budgeted and what has actually occurred, perhaps over the last decade, and I know this is not something that you can just operate right now, but it's just out of curiosity. In municipalities, we talk about climate adaptation and thinking proactively, and I am assuming that Hydro is also doing the same thing because I see trees being trimmed quite often. And I was wondering if there are other methods that Orangeville Hydro implements for climate adaptation, knowing that the weather is changing over a period of time in a certain area. Definition of climate change. Okay, thank you.
I can take that one.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
I'll talk about some of the historical things that have been going on for at least 10 years. So we don't design our system say structurally, the size of the pole based on the size of the wire. So we don't design our system from a structural standpoint just with our own rules and codes, local. They are done at actually the federal level. So the Canadian Standards Association back in 2015 did a deep dive into what needs to change. And so instead of just using 90-kilometer-per-hour winds in certain areas, they need to go up to 110 kilometer-hour winds. And planning for that, what are the stresses on the poles with that type of wind speed, poles and wires with that type of wind speed. The impact of drought on our underground infrastructure and the impact of frost going deeper than it has gone before, impact of flooding occurring higher and more frequently. And so the same things you're doing on the municipal side, our codes and standards have changed and how we build our system. So that's sort of from if we put in a new piece of equipment today, how the engineers and engineering technicians are designing it, that's been a progressing forward every standard revision for the last 10 years. So that's great for new infrastructure. Then the other side that we've been doing since I always say it wrong, derecho storm from a few years ago that hit a bit more out east of us. Since then, our regulator has been saying, well, reliability statistics and ensuring they regulate our sector from a reliability standpoint isn't enough. Reliability is for day-to-day. They brought in a new term, resilience, really focusing on how do we monitor the sector, how do we monitor ourselves and track our stats with high impact, low frequency events. And so now we have to do when we go in front of, for our rate hearings, old ways of even doing our rate regulatory process aren't good enough because of climate change. We now have to do additional studies for vulnerable assets and system hardening. So really justifying, if we're going to leave things a little weaker, longer out there, we better have a study of why, and understanding that that's a risk-based approach, and similarly you might do with your other assets. So it's coming at us from all levels, and it's now built into our day-to-day processes and constantly changing.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. We've learned so much about hydro over the last period of time. So to me, to have you back here, I didn't have anything deep that I wanted to go into, but just a couple of quick thoughts. One is the dividend increase. I was quite pleased to see that. So thank you very much for your management overall of the financials. And, you know, I think people would appreciate why that's so important to the town, that it goes up, which is great. My second piece would be is you had espoused about your great understanding of microeconomic predictions to Councillor Andrews. I'm just curious, what is the general feeling at the almost halfway point of the year on how things are going for this year? And would it be too presumptuous to ask how we thought the year would end up sort of overall? Are we on pace for something similar, or are you anticipating any setbacks or surprises?
Yeah, I guess you could say, first off, I could do a little bit and see if you have anything to add, Amy. But last year was a good year. By definition, not every year can be a good year. So we did want to preface that, right? I think I said that before in past conversations of, you know, by definition, not every year can be a record year. At least it's hard to do, unless you have some good tailwinds at your back. So for us, this year is on pace to budget, on pace to plan, but that's really looking only up to April statistics now, right? We're getting into construction season. We're through the spring storm season, winter season is to come. There's always a lot of variables. You know, our plans, I'm sure your municipal plans can be the same. Sometimes it feels your plan's only good until January 2nd, and then life happens. But to be honest, so far this year, it looks like a standard on budget year, and we have no reason to believe that this year will be significantly different than what we planned. And that would be on our forecasted net income, our forecasted return on regulated equity, as opposed to, we're on pace to blow it out of the water again or anything like that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any other questions from members of council? Okay, so with that then, thank you both for being here tonight. The recommendation in the report is that the Orangeville Hydro 2025 annual report be received, and that council approve the proposed resolution listed in the Orangeville Hydro Limited agenda for the annual shareholders meeting scheduled for June 30th, 2026, and that council appoint Mayor Post as proxy and Councillor McIntosh as proxy in the absence of Mayor Post to attend to vote for the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at the annual shareholders meeting to be held on June 30th, and any adjournments thereof, revoking any proxy previously given, and that council direct such proxy to vote in favor of the proposed resolution listed in the Orangeville Hydro Limited agenda for the annual shareholders meeting, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the proxy resolution for the annual shareholders meeting of Orangeville Hydro Limited. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Prendergast and Councillor Andrews, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for being here. So we'll now move into the consent agenda. The following items have been compiled under the consent agenda to facilitate a single vote for council consideration. Council may remove any item from the consent agenda for individual consideration. I have already been notified that 13.1.2, the Orangeville Lions Club pump track naming, 13.1.3, the report on e-scooter pilot program, and 13.1.6, the York Street Heritage Conservation District, have all been removed from consent. Was there anything else that council wishes to remove from consent? Nope. Okay, so the recommendation then is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for individual consideration, which again is 13.1.2, 13.1.3, and 13.1.6. Can I have a mover and a seconder for everything else? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so we will then move into 13.1.2, which is the Orangeville Lions Club pump track naming. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to pull this just for a comment. I certainly agree with the Orangeville Lion pump track name, and I just wanted to make sure the Lions Club get recognition of that. They obviously put a lot of money into that, and it's nice to see that. And I'm sure other councillors and are looking for updates, and I don't want to put Ms. Savage on the spot, but I'm just wondering if she has an update of when it will be resurfaced again.
Ms. Savage?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stevens, through you, Mayor Post. The asphalt, as we know, was cracking within a week of installing the material. It was removed in March, early April, and at that time they were hoping to regrade the soil, but it was too wet. We've been up against some weather conditions in this area, so the grading still has yet to, they're going to return this week to do the grading. We were also waiting for the asphalt plants to open up. They need warm weather in order to be able to properly construct. And so once the grading is done next week, we're waiting on two things, the asphalt plant and also for our contractor to confirm when they're going to install the remainder of the asphalt for the track. Shade shelters should be implemented mid-June. Now, if we have council approval, then we can move forward with any of the signage. And there's a few flower beds that we'll be doing this spring as well.
Mayor Post, I just want to add, Heather tells me this regularly, so I want to share is that all of that work is done under warranty. There's not an additional cost to taxpayers.
Thank you very much. And again, I just also want to thank the Lions Club for their contribution. I think that this is a really great way to honor their contribution and their ongoing work to our park system. So we really are grateful for the Orangeville Lions Club. So if there's no further questions, then the recommendation is that report CMS 2026-17, the Orangeville Lions Club pump track naming be received, and that council approve the renaming of the Orangeville BMX Park to Orangeville Lions Club pump track and installation of signage to reflect the new name and the Lions Club logo. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. Next up, we have 13.1.3, the report on the e-scooter pilot program. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you pulled this one, so you can have first crack at it.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. Candidly, my modus operandi here was I wanted to make sure that we were going to discuss it. So we've been through it in detail. We understand what the provincial regulations are. And now we have our bylaw team who has weighed in on the report and what we should do. And just generally, I didn't want it to pass by. So I don't have a question per se, other than I'd love for Mr. Bramley, if he's available, to take us through his report and us to have a robust discussion as a group, given the importance of this to the community as an emerging issue.
Mr. Bramley? I know you're online somewhere, I believe. So if you want to go ahead and take us through the key pieces of your report, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Post. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Verify you guys can hear me, correct? Perfect. Before I start talking and no one can actually react or hear what I'm saying. So we have this discussion that has come up in council many times and discussions with residents and members of staff. I want to start off that this, first and foremost, e-scooters are prohibited within the town on any sidewalks, boulevards, trailways, roadways, and this is governed by the province through the Highway Traffic Act. If the town were wanting to allow this, we would want or need to take part in the e-scooter pilot program. This program was initially started and brought forward January 1st in 2020, and what that didn't change many regulations other than the fact that it would allow the town to create some rules and regulations around where a scooter could operate around the regular infrastructure. When I say that they're prohibited, again, this is only speaking to roads, highways, trailways, and sidewalks. It doesn't regulate e-scooters on private property, as again, police aren't enforcing bikes and other vehicles on private property in the same aspect. And that's why I want to make it very clear that these rules are enforced by the police through the Highway Traffic Act, and that's where that authority comes from, first and foremost. Through this exercise, we did a deep dive on what exactly an e-scooter is, and it's goes from anything from the small ones that a young child can buy. It's a motorized scooter with 2 wheels. It doesn't have pedals. It is fully electric or motorized. What the rules of the current pilot program do regulate is maximum speeds, safe operations on what they should be doing, such as has been brought up, only one person should be on the scooter. They should have helmets. Anybody under the age of 18 should have a helmet. But again, I want to reiterate, currently as it stands, those aren't permitted. We don't enforce those rules because they're not permitted on our current roadways at this time. After we went through this, there is a large challenge in enforcing these rules, as well as, again, these are very transitory violations when they aren't followed. A lot of these e-scooters can be purchased online, and third-party merchandisers that don't follow the guidelines that are set out through the province. So they don't have a speed cap on them. They don't have these rules and regulations put in. And these are problems and challenges that multiple municipalities are facing, and in looking for a means to regulate this means of transportation. We did a large scan of the municipalities within Ontario, and what we found is there is no common practice from any municipality. There are many that do operate or have opted into this pilot program, including Hamilton, Ottawa, London, Guelph, Brampton, Mississauga, Oshawa, Durham, and so on. But in the counterpart, there's also other ones, large municipalities such as Toronto, Oakville, Barrie. And even when we look in the States, New York, Boston, other large cities are also prohibiting, finding that there are significant challenges and safety concerns as rules aren't enforced, and the challenge to enforce these come into effect due to the fact that there are no license plates on these vehicles. They're often operated by young children, so when we go into any enforcement, we have certain rules and regulations that we have to follow when laying a charge or a penalty against minors, and how do we stop them, as officers themselves don't have the authority to actually stop anybody if they're on a vehicle as the police do. We can ask for an identification, but we cannot compel identification. Again, that's a very large factor I want to bring forward, that when we ask for it, there's no consequence for saying, no, if you just say your name, that is the identification we need to accept. Whereas police, when they pull someone over, they have the authority to compel identification. And this is what leads us into why we're suggesting staying in the current model where we're not opting in. If we bring in these regulations and rules, we are a reactive team. With these being very mobile, by the time an officer can get there, they'll generally will be gone at that point in time. And we don't have that enforcement mechanism to actually effectively manage or enforce contraventions of this. When we go through the options we did bring forward, so not opting in continues to prohibit any e-scooters on our roadways, sidewalks, boulevards, and trailways. The option 2 and 3 are the ones where we opt in. Option 2 would just be opting in, allowing them, and creating some sort of framework and to regulate where they would be allowed to operate. This brings up the enforcement challenges that I already brought in. And then the option 3 would be going into a hybrid model. And I want to expand on what the hybrid model really looks like, is what you would compare when you go to Brampton or Hamilton, where you can see individuals riding those rental scooters that you actually have to log in and create a profile for. This is their effort into having enforcement due to if there's any violations, they can go through those companies, those third-party providers, and go provide a penalty against the individuals who create a profile while using their rented scooters. Again, they both come with large infrastructure development and considerations that I can't speak to on my part, but I have worked with transportation development having those discussions, and it is a long-term project if it's something to address. And that is the report in a summary of to where we've arrived today and what our recommendation is. But I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bramley. Deputy Mayor Taylor, do you have anything else that you want to add at this time? I do have other councillors with questions, but I'll turn it back to you.
I will wait and hear the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Bramley, thank you for your overview of your report. And I also want to thank Deputy Mayor Taylor for wanting to have somewhat of a robust discussion. This is something that's been on my radar since 2019 in the previous term of council. And I think it's one of those situations that, again, through dialogue, I want to thank some of the members of our gallery who happen to be here in attendance, who've expressed their concerns, their thoughts. Also members of our community who've been in touch with me and maybe other members of council as well. Sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is misinformation gets out there, and this is not to be accusatory in any way, but there's been a lot of discussion that has been taking place behind the scenes to get where we are today with this report. As Mr. Bramley is very clear that there are comparators, and I really don't want to even use the term comparators because those are municipalities that are much larger than ours that have embraced this particular type of program. For example, City of Brampton, City of Mississauga, Ottawa, Hamilton. They have an infrastructure system that enables them to support this and, of course, use the term police it. The difficulty that I'm facing with this, and Mr. Bramley and Deputy Mayor Taylor and even Mayor Post, I've shared a document that in fact happens to be on the page of the provincial government that highlights what to do about an e-scooter. It's called education. And one of the problems we have is, and I'll just give you a little quick story. Before I came here to our council meeting tonight, I happened to pop into one of our local businesses to grab a beverage. And 3 young boys were out and about going to the same location, 2 on bikes and 1 on e-scooter. And I happened to compliment the young gentleman who was wearing a helmet, had the appropriate lights on his scooter because mom and dad ended up buying the right one. Now, the boy was only 12 years of age, so again, that's that gray area that exists under this documentation from the province. With this pilot, this is the ebbs and flows that we're having to deal with. We have a lack of education that, in fact, is not being implemented at the parental level and or at the school level. And I think that when we talk about, and Mr. Simpson, again, you are spot on with what you spoke about, that, you know, we have some rogue riders out there that unfortunately are making this a bad thing in our community. It's not everyone. We have absolutely respectful riders, those that are riding bikes. I could tell stories about my previous role, you know, being a motorcycle rider, and one of the reasons I'm no longer riding a motorcycle is because of the drivers on the road that forced me to stop driving a motorcycle. Having said that, I think that when we take a look at the options that Mr. Bramley has investigated and has put forth in this report, from an enforcement point of view, it becomes very difficult from a municipality of our size to actually start chasing riders, because the ones that are the problem are the ones that are gone very quickly. And I think that what we need to do is, and I've shared this with Mr. Bramley, I really think that if there was an outcome of this particular discussion today is to have some form of education messaging that is put forth on our website. Somehow it is maybe included as part of communication through whatever the, you know, our tax bill or whatever it is. For the province to have this on their website and where people may not be able to spot it, maybe that's our responsibility as a municipality, because if we're not going to opt in any way, shape, and form, I still think we need to get the message out to be that whomever it is that is considering buying these, again, Mr. Bramley has highlighted accurately, third-party vendors are not adhering to the standards that exist. They, you know, are missing some parts. They don't have lights. And I think that that is something that if we can do from a municipality at this point of view, because our bylaw officers, if we want them to go in and do this, guess what they're going to be spending most of their time? Looking for e-scooter riders that in fact are gone within a couple of seconds. And we know as residents, as pedestrians that may be on the road or driving, we see the complexities that exist. I've stopped some people and just say, by the way, are you following the rules of the road? And yes, I've had the same kind of response. But I've also had the other side of this where people have been very clear saying, I'm terribly sorry that, I was not really thinking, should be wearing a helmet, should be doing what you're supposed to be doing is following the rules of the road. So I'm looking forward to maybe some other conversations if, not to say that we're going to end up spending all of our council meeting here tonight, but this is a contentious issue, and I still think that our responsibility is to echo some form of education, whatever form that is, but I think that would be the place that I would like to land, at least at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Andrews took most of my fire. Thank you. A couple of things. I agree with everything Councillor Andrews said. However, as far as the education, basically what we're being told that this is an illegal practice. So how do we as a town come out and say, well, if you do it, you got to wear this, you should wear this and do that. Meanwhile, you're not allowed to do it. So I just wonder what kind of message the town. Yeah, that's my only concern with your statement. My next question is to Deputy Mayor Taylor. What does OPP have to say about this, or do they not say anything about it?
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. It's a good point. And so when I had my chance to speak again, my sharing was going to be the way it's written right now, as I understand it, is that the OPP would need to enforce it. And it is very difficult for our bylaw team to enforce it. And my fear is, and this isn't a rundown of the OPP, it's just simply that is extra things for them to do, and they will do it if they see it. But I think we know that, the lion's share of what's happening is going to slide through. And that's where my consternation comes in. I don't know that we've got a great solution here about what we should be doing in the future. Like, the OPP are going to struggle to get to these.
Anything else, Councillor McIntosh? No. Thank you. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I just thought about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bramley, for us to actually talk about education and awareness and to put anything out from the town, we have to partake in the pilot program, thus making it legal in the town. Is that true? No?
Sorry, thank you, through you, Mayor Post. So the point is, if we put out education and those rules and regulations that Councillor Andrews did bring up that was found on the province's page, those are rules that are set out for municipalities who have taken part in the pilot program where e-scooters are permitted. And those goes over the e-scooter requirements, such as the wheels, they must have brakes, they must have a horn and bell, lights, they must be a maximum power of 500 watts with a maximum speed of 24 kilometers an hour. They have to be at least 16 years old of age. They can't double ride. They must have a helmet if they're under the age of 18. They can't have any passengers or cargo. These are all rules and regulations set out by the pilot program.
Okay, thank you. I just have something else to add. Well, what if we just thought about this differently? Like, partaking in the pilot program for our town is not so much about enforcement, but just about education. Because we can't enforce this. That's the reality, right? It would be impossible to enforce this by the OPP. But the province is seriously lacking in education for kids, parents, and families and drivers. So the onus is now on us as a municipality to pick up that slack. Because Councillor Andrews, can you show me that again? This is what the province has. I've seen about so many more gambling advertisements, and I wish that there would be more focus put on children's heads and their safety. But this is now left on our backs. So I'm thinking, how can we help families know that these are dangerous? Kids can modify them and go up to 40 kilometers an hour. I'm a school teacher. Everybody knows that. Grade 8s are riding scooters to school with no helmets. It's not safe. Acquired brain injury is no joke. I think we just raised that flag recently. But I don't want to blame parents. I don't want to blame other people, but kids just need to know about what is safe. Can we have OPP come and talk to someone about it? I think washing our hands of it isn't good enough. I think we should participate in this somehow so we can get the word out to families that it's not safe. The reality is we don't have a paved trail system that kids can safely use scooters on. They can't really use them on the sidewalk because I feel like I'm going to get run over, and I'm sure everybody else here feels that same way. But they're pretty fun to use, and they look cool. So kids are going to keep using them, but we want them to use helmets, and we want them to do it safely. What about a town hall? How about we all put our heads together and think of something? Because it's not going away. And those are my thoughts, sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Andrews?
Thank you again, Your Worship, and Councillor Pendergrass. I truly appreciate your passion and candidness on this. I mean, we could end up having a long debate, and people who declare themselves to be experts are going to end up diving into every social media sandbox. And I'm sorry, but we have to find a way to come up with a solution. But whatever that solution is, it's one that I feel compelled from a safety point of view. It's a safety mitigation. I don't know where this is going to land, other than I feel that opting out is not to say the easy way out, but it is the prudent thing to do from a financial perspective, because it changes the whole framework on what our bylaw department has to then focus on, and in unison with the police. What has happened, and I'm just going to be right to the point, the province basically has washed their hands in some respect with this, and just throw it onto the shoulders of the municipalities and you make it work. And they've extended this pilot now to 2029, and in such a way that we have a 5-month hiatus or whatever it was. How many weeks that the House or the legislature is not sitting? It is what it is, and okay, whatever, 21 weeks. Here we are discussing this, and it's a situation that it is the tool of the summer for young people to have if their parents can, in fact, afford to buy a $400 or $500 or a $1,200 e-scooter. It is also, as was talked about earlier, in my comment to Mr. Coco and Ms. Long about the costs that seem to be increasing regarding fuel, this is also an alternative way of getting around town for some people. So the old infamous bike was one way of getting around. It's now kind of a cool thing to have. But we've got to get some messaging out to the people that are using this. Is it the vendors that we get the messaging out? Is it to the school system that we get the messaging out? Is it to the parents? I like the idea of, maybe, referring this to the town hall, and I know our town hall cycle, unfortunately, has concluded. So in the interim, with the summer upon us, it's an opportunity for us, hopefully, to get some messaging out, but I'm not sure. I see that Deputy Mayor Taylor's got his hand up as well.
CAO, do you want to go first? And then Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much. And all excellent comments. I monitor others. Town of Shelburne actually posts regularly on their social media the exact graphic that you have. The comments on social media is, how come you're not enforcing that? They don't have the ability to do that. But what I'm understanding and what I'm hearing is this is a communication issue. We have an incredibly talented communication team that helps us manage complex communication issues. I'd like to offer up their talent and expertise. I'm certainly willing to broach this topic with them, and Councillor Andrews, perhaps you as well, to develop an appropriate communication strategy that balances the notion that it's illegal, but here's how to do it safely, which you don't want to do. You don't want to say, hey, it's illegal to drink alcohol in the public, but if you are, use a plastic cup, right? Like that doesn't make sense. So our communication team can help us navigate this. It's a really delicate balance that the province is responsible for. The OPP are responsible to invest, but we have a human interest to keep people safe and protected.
Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to share with everyone, one of the things I've really enjoyed these last 4 years is when our greater group gets together and sort of has this open debate. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know where it's going to come. Candidly, I didn't want to weigh in at the beginning and say option one simply because I didn't want to be the negative Nelly in the group. But the reality is, although that's an incredibly disappointing position, that is the most practical position that we can be in. And CAO Smith has beat me to the punch. Really the only spot that we can do is to have this extra communication that would go out. And if I could, maybe to CAO Smith, one of the things that I've noticed with our communication strategy, first of all, it's crystal clear. I find it very easy to understand what our communications group is trying to say on the issues. But my one thought would be is sometimes we report on an issue and then we don't come back on the issue, or perhaps if we do that, I miss it. But perhaps there's a quarterly update or a bi-monthly update throughout the summer on what the expectations are of scooters that comes out from the communication department, just to say what it is and then to refresh what it is. But this is sort of toothless. If I was a member of of our Orangeville population, I think I'd be disappointed. But from a practical standpoint, there isn't much else we can do at this point as it relates to this issue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Prendergast.
I just have a bit of a rhetorical question. If we know youth are using scooters and they're doing so unsafely in our town and it poses a risk to the youth and the drivers on the streets, our hands are tied. Who then educates the youth? The schools? The parents? It's not the province. So I'm just wondering what the next steps are. And I'm just kind of going to leave it out there maybe for someone else to think about.
Councillor Andrews.
I'll just jump in, and again, as CEO Smith was very kind to highlight the fact that, kind of piggybacking on some of the things that we've already spoken about regarding communication, I think that that's really part of the strategy. The communication strategy is, and we're almost into, quote, the summer break. Kids are going to be out and about for their summer holidays, and so, how quickly we would be able to get some messaging into the schools, that's just a quick phone call to the superintendent, but it doesn't necessarily reflect and circulate within. I think it's common sense. I wish common sense would prevail in many of these things and the decisions that parents make and or whomever is buying the scooters. But having said that, I think the bottom line is that we've got to do something, and I think that this is probably the best way of doing so without, in fact, burdening the bylaw department. And again, I want to thank Mr. Bramley for all the work that he's done on this, because he's done a tremendous job in getting this document together and doing comparators with the other municipalities that, in fact, have the wherewithal, and maybe, because of the size of those municipalities, they can afford to have a vendor that is, in fact, also tied into that. We just don't have the economy of scale to do that sort of thing here in Orangeville, and it is one of those gray areas, as we've been very clear in discussing here this evening.
Thanks, Councillor Andrews. I think all of my council colleagues have made some really great points, and if nobody else has any comments, I'll weigh in with mine. I think where we're at right now is that we know that the kids in the community are going to continue to use e-scooters, and other people are going to continue to use e-scooters. And I agree that I think we have a bit of a responsibility to do some education on what that looks like. The fundamental problem right now is that the way that the provincial legislation is set up, if we opt into any pilot program, we end up being responsible for the enforcement of it as a municipality. And I think that all of our taxpayers would agree that they don't want us hiring 10 extra bylaw officers to stand on Broadway and catch kids riding e-scooters, right? It's not a good use of municipal resources, but the provincial legislation is flawed, the way that it's written. Anecdotally, I have spoken to some of the municipalities who have opted into the pilot program with regret. They have some real regrets for having opted into the program, because now the onus is on them to enforce and to continue moving forward through it. And I think that's a position that we don't want to be in as a municipality. So I think while we can, and I like CAO Smith's suggestion of our using alcohol, but don't use it in public. But if you do, here's how to use it safely. I think that's exactly right. But I do think that the education piece is going to be key, because we do recognize that these aren't going away. But I think we have to continue our advocacy work with the province to really push them to improve the pilot program and to make it something that works better for municipalities. Because this is just an example of how a cost and how the onus is going to be downloaded on municipalities. And we see that consistently from the provincial government, that there is this desire to have municipalities take on the responsibility of things that aren't really ours to take on, and we don't have the resources to be able to do. So I think the way, if I'm hearing what council is saying, I would move forward a motion or read a motion that I think we could probably agree on. That report CPS 2026-30 report on the e-scooter pilot program be received, and that council maintain the current status outside of the provincial e-scooter pilot program at this time. and that council directs staff to continue to monitor the pilot project, future legislative changes, and the experiences of other municipalities throughout the remainder of the pilot period ending November 27th, 2029. I would add on to that the communications team work on a robust education piece that really balances an understanding that, well, this is not a municipal responsibility. We recognize our role in education for the community to ensure that if people are going to do something outside of what the legislation allows, that they're doing it safely and that we can protect public interest there. I would also add on there that council do some advocacy, and maybe it starts with a letter to our provincial team that we can follow up with at AMO to continue to talk about what the challenges that the municipality is having when it comes to e-scooters and where we are feeling conflicted about the way that the legislation in the pilot program currently is. I think we have an opportunity where we could do some advocacy. With that as well, I know kind of Councillor Prendergast mouthed that maybe we should consider writing a letter as well to the schools. And if I'd be happy to do that on behalf of council, just to talk about what this looks like and to encourage the schools to share that with parents, so that we can not only use our town social, but we can also use, you know, our council resources to be able to do that. So that's a pretty little motion that I think you can probably work up for there. I'd be happy to take a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast. Councillor McIntosh has a comment.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I have no problem with that, but I think we should stress that this is illegal. And if parents are going to continue to buy their children things that are illegal, we're going to have a problem. So I think educating the parents as well to let them know, like no person I've ever spoke to in town knows that it's illegal to ride a scooter. They want us to cure the problem, but when I say, well, it's actually illegal, they have no idea. So maybe if parents knew this, they wouldn't be buying their children these bikes, but just something we should maybe add.
Thanks, Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been silent over this topic because you know what? In 3.5 years, I didn't know what to do. I like your idea, and I will support it. And thank you for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Anything else from members of council? If not, we've got a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. Thank you, Mr. Bramley, for a very robust report as well. That was very helpful. We will now move on to 13.1.6, which is the York Street Heritage Conservation District. I will turn it over to Councillor Sherwood to begin the conversation.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I just have some comments. First of all, I want to acknowledge the citizens that are sitting in the gallery tonight. I just wanted to provide comment on your dedication and your persistence in keeping your little heritage area, your beautiful Heritage Street heritage. And I can tell you, you're unified and you all worked tirelessly. And I've got to know many of you during this last couple of years, and I truly feel all the passion you have for your neighborhood. I also want to thank you all for your patience. As you can see, this has been a long, drawn-out process, but we are coming up to the end. I want to thank the Heritage Orangeville Committee for their expertise and their support and recommendations to council. I also then want to thank Stantec and Lasha in particular for their very professional and expertise. I think we struck gold when we acquired them as our consultant. They are experts and they are really good at what they do. They have taken all of the feedback and with respect and brought great study and now tonight a great plan based on the feedback from the residents. So again, Stantec and Lasha, I want to thank you. Our manager of planning, Brandon Ward, I can't thank you enough for how tirelessly you have worked on this, and you have been so respectful and professional and worked with the residents. You've found, if you didn't know, you found the answers. You provided great guidance, and I can't thank you enough for how you have led and really been a true champion in bringing this all into conclusion. Council, I want to thank you all. We have, I think, the support that we have shown has shown that democracy does work and that we do listen to our constituents, you know, and I've never been so proud of a council as I have this, and I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart that you can see that we are here working for you, and we listen to you, and your actions are being reflected tonight. So again, thank you, council and everybody else. Overall, the boundary presented satisfies all the needs and the wishes of the community, particularly York Street and in some of its area. The boundary and the plan have been carefully drafted. Even though I personally disagree with a couple of properties coming out, I will not hold up this designation process for the sake of my own personal wish to have a couple of properties in. The goal was to designate York Street, and I think that's where we're heading tonight. There's still more to do. Mr. Ward and Stantec have other things they'll have to do to wrap this up. This doesn't end tonight. There's still lots of work for them to do. So I want to acknowledge and let the people know, let it take its course. We know that staff will be working on this as quickly as possible, and we're all hoping that it'll be wrapped up before the end of this term. So I just want to let you all know that I will be supporting the recommendation provided to us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood, and thank you for your dedication on the Heritage Committee. It's been absolutely valuable in so many different instances. You've taken a brunt of work this year with a number of the committees that you're on, and just know that we appreciate that. Was there any other questions or comments on this item from any member of council? Okay, so with that then, I just want to also note that the related bylaw is included as 17.2 that will also relate to this, but the recommendation is that report INS 2026-38, the York Street Heritage Conservation District Plan and Designation Bylaw be received, and that pursuant to subsections 41.1 and 41.11 of the Ontario Heritage Act, a bylaw be passed as included in the bylaw section of this meeting agenda to Number 1, designate the area shown on attachment number 1 to this report as the York Street Heritage Conservation District. And number 2, adopt the York Street Heritage Conservation District Plan as included in attachment number 2 to this report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the gallery for being here tonight. We received no notice of motion prior to the meeting. Was there any notices of motion that anyone would like to bring forward tonight? Not seeing any. Was there any announcements? Oh, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last week, you and I had the privilege, and I want to thank Councillor Andrews, Councillor Sherwood for coming to our Accessibility Championship Awards. We honored 2 businesses here in town, Salvation Army and Craft Pizza and Bar, for going up and above for accessibility. And on behalf of all of us, congratulate those 2 businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Andrews.
I saw Councillor McIntosh's hand go. He tell you what, he can go first. Okay, that's very kind. I know it felt like a game show there for a second. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the general public who supported the Alzheimer's Walk for the Alzheimer's Society of Dufferin. The point that I just wanted to share, you were very generous with your contributions as the walk ambassador this year. We doubled the number of walkers and have raised close to $100,000 in funds for this particular walk, which was just really impactful. And the second, I just wanted to thank those that were involved with the Orangeville Blues and Jazz Festival. Again, I know that maybe Mayor Post was going to echo a comment of some sort, but for those of us who partook in the event for the last 3 days, it was enjoyable, it was exhausting, it was uplifting, it was musical, it was everything, and the weather, for the most part, was also complimentary. To Mr. Kurtz and the rest of the crew and the volunteers in particular, thank you, and I also thank those that came to our community. There were a number of people I bumped into who were coming to Orangeville for the very first time or were repeat visitors and are just so complimentary of what we have in our community. So again, we look forward to the 23rd year coming up next year.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast, and then Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I just wanted to let residents of our community know and business owners or anyone who owns property here that the Sustainable Orangeville Grant application is open until the end of the month. And you could apply for up to $1,000 for pretty much anything that promotes environmentalism in the town. It could be the implementation of a water absorption rain garden in your front that benefits the community. It could be something like installing a bike rack outside of your business. All of the information is online, and I'll be putting that on my social media again, and I invite you to apply. It's a very easy application process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. June the 20th, between 8 and 12, members of the Age Friendly Committee will be at the Orangeville Farmers Market handing out information for seniors. Yeah, I'll even be there, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McIntosh. Any other announcements? Not seeing any. We'll move into bylaws then. The recommendation is that all the bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17 be read 3 times and finally passed, subject to section 284-11 of the Municipal Act. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood. All in favor? That is carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh and Deputy Mayor. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks for joining us this evening, everyone.
Good night, all.